There was a silence in the grand chamber that could suffocate a god, not a breath stir among the dozens of species gathered. Seated in tiers of gleaming stone, chitin, or polymer, depending on their world of origin, delegates from empires spanning spiral arms, monarchs of black hole kingdoms, executors of hive minds, titans in jean suits the size of buildings. And yet they all sat frozen, as if time itself feared what was about to walk through those towering crystalline doors. And I walked in, just one human, no army, no weapons, no entourage or diplomatic delegation behind me, no translator drone buzzing at my shoulder, just me, boots echoing like gunshots across the council hall of Virex Prime. I was aware of every eye, compound, glowing, or cybernetic, fixed on me as I approached the central speaking platform. They didn't look at me like a threat. They looked at me like I was a mistake. Too soft, too weak, too human. Their mistake. State your designation. The voice boomed from the speaker's column, modulated through 6 different tonal frequencies to accommodate the range of auditory species present. It belonged to Suthari Zek, the primary adjudicator of the Galactic High Council, a serpentine being composed of shifting gas and light. It had no eyes, but I could feel its focus cutting through my skin. I reached the pedestal and stopped. My voice came calm, practiced. Commander Elias Rhane, former Earth Coalition Strategic Operations. Murmurs rippled across the chamber, like a tide of whispers. The title meant something to them, but not enough. Not yet. Suthari Zek pulsed a dark hue, like a dying star collapsing inward. You were not invited. Earth has no voice in this chamber. Earth had no voice, I corrected, raising my eyes, until you took ours away. The silence turned brittle. Across from me, the Jadhari representative, half machine, half devilfish, twitched with irritation. To my left, the Varnock ambassador growled in low vibrations. The council was used to humans groveling, begging for favors, maybe asking for mercy. I wasn't here for mercy. I was here because they made a fatal error. You see, they thought exterminating Earth's colonies was a political warning, a demonstration of interstellar dominance. They thought if they hit us hard enough, wipe out a few billion lives in the outer systems, we'd sit down, shut up, and stay in line. They didn't understand the nature of what they'd awakened. I placed a small silver case on the podium, thumbed it open, and stepped back. A holographic projection burst to life. It displayed the 12 destroyed human colonies, the screams, the blackened skies, the children crushed beneath collapsed arcologies, live footage from our satellites, the kind no one had shown the galaxy. Not yet. They looked away. Some winced. Others blinked their multiple eyes in confusion. Some didn't care. And those were the ones I had come for. We asked for aid, for justice. I continued. You gave us silence. You were warned, spat the Morak ambassador, her voice like stone cracking under pressure. Earth's expansion violated neutral buffer zones. Your colonies ignored treaties. Treaties you rewrote without us at the table. I said, laws designed to choke us out. Because you are unstable, hissed another delegate. Your kind wages war even with itself. You tamper with genetic horrors, build AI monstrosities. You are not civilized. Maybe not, I said, but we remember our dead, and we don't let monsters decide what justice looks like. There was a tremor in the floor then, faint, rhythmic, as if something deep below had stirred. I didn't smile, not yet. That part came later. You speak boldly for a species under sanction, said Suthari Zek. What do you expect us to do? Apologize? I stepped closer, voice lowering like thunderclouds over a battlefield. I don't want an apology. The chamber's light dimmed, powerful shielding dampening the projection above me. Some of the delegates looked upward, nervous now. I came here, I said slowly, deliberately, to give you one last chance. One of the Kralek guards raised its plasma rifle. Standard protocol. Too late, because at that moment, the signal embedded in my bloodstream hit its trigger point. 60 orbital stealth platforms, cloaked in dark space just outside the planetary sensor net, came online. Weapons primed. Targets acquired. It was never about asking. Never about permission. My voice dropped to a whisper, but somehow everyone heard it. You came for our silence. I raised my eyes. Now meet the storm. The chamber erupted in panic, but they were already too late. I didn't flinch when the first plasma bolt seared past my shoulder. I didn't have to. It hit a kinetic shield that shimmered blue for a split second, then collapsed in a hiss of energy. I told them this was a negotiation. The council chamber plunged into chaos. Guards of every species surged forward, weapons drawn. Wings beat, claws scraped, and translator drones buzzed out of sync as species screamed in 100 dialects. They didn't realize yet. They still thought this was just a human protest, until the ceiling above us groaned. A sound like the atmosphere itself was holding its breath. One of the orbiting platforms had begun the override. I'd warned command not to fire until I gave the signal, but a secondary trigger had already been hard-coded into the strike package. If I died, the world died with me. A statement, and humanity was done whispering. Cease fire. Sutherizek's voice boomed, distorted, panicked now, for the first time in recorded memory. Contain the human. Do not kill him. The council guards hesitated, but only for a moment. I counted for coming from my left, another 3 from the right, and one charging straight toward the podium, screaming in a voice that grated like rusted steel. I didn't draw a weapon. I didn't need to. Instead, I pressed my thumb to the side of my neck. A hiss, a spike of heat, and then everything changed. The nanosurge flooded my bloodstream. The temporary upgrade would last 20 minutes, enough to tear through a small army, if I had to, which, judging by the way a 12-foot Varnock leapt at me with a vibroblade the size of a starship hull panel, I probably did. The world slowed. My pulse quickened, and the first Varnock never even saw the punch that cratered his skull. I moved like something born from Earth's darkest wars. Faster, harder, sharper than anything they'd ever fought. Bones snapped, armor shattered. I didn't kill. Not yet. Not unless I had to. The message had to be clear. We were capable. We were holding back. One of the insectoid guards screamed in their clicking dialect as I hurled him across the chamber. Bodies scattered. A four-armed brute lunged, and I used his momentum to flip him through a reinforced pillar. Dust filled the air. The others began to retreat. Good. They were learning. When the dust cleared, I stood at the center of the grand chamber, surrounded by groaning bodies and shocked silence. The ceiling overhead cracked open, not from weapons fire, but from a massive, glowing projection that now beamed to the planetary defense grid. A human face appeared in the sky. Admiral June Tavera, commanding officer of Earth's Outer Response Armada. She didn't blink. Transmission received, Commander Rhane, she said, her voice like steel drawn across a whetstone. Orbital strike capabilities locked and confirmed. Virex Prime's primary cities and council districts are within first-wave casualty range. This is not a bluff. Awaiting your go command. The council chamber fell into terrified silence. Even Sutherizek dimmed. You wouldn't... Came a voice from behind me. The Arkan diplomat, one of the oldest species in the galaxy, stood trembling on his crystalline limbs. You humans would not risk war with the council. It would doom your species. I turned. We already tried peace. You burned our people alive in sterilization protocols and called it enforcement. You murdered children to protect your economic treaties. You erased our voices from this council. I stepped toward him. He shrank back. There's nothing left to threaten us with. A flicker in the corner of the room caught my attention. One of the minor species delegates transmitting data, off-world. Maybe a desperate warning. Maybe a plea. Didn't matter. The message was already clear. I raised my wrist. The implant glowed red. All I had to do was speak a single word, and Virex Prime would burn. Sutherizek's light flared suddenly. Wait. What do you want? I turned back to the speaker's column. We want our seat, I said. A permanent one. Veto power, economic parity, tech access. Everything we were denied. That's insane, a voice gasped. You can't buy a seat with threats. No, I replied, but We can build a galaxy where we don't need your permission. A new silence fell. Heavier, realer, because they knew I wasn't bluffing. I wasn't negotiating. I was delivering terms. One by one, the remaining council members looked at each other, some still fuming, some frightened. A few, just a few, watching me with something new in their eyes. Respect, or maybe survival instinct. Withdraw your fleet, Sutrizek finally said. We will convene, discuss. You have one planetary cycle. I said. After that, we stopped talking. I turned and walked back across the ruined floor of the chamber, past broken pillars and bleeding guards, past delegates who could not look me in the eye. One human had walked into the council, and now they all understood why no one else would walk out the same. They called it a diplomatic cycle, but we both knew what it really was. A countdown. Virex Prime rotated once on its opaline axis, while the council scrambled behind closed doors. Some met in hidden chambers beneath the oceans of the Shadow Basin. Others communicated through secure galactic nets, fractal encrypted and paranoid beyond reason. I could imagine it clearly. Tentacles wringing in worry, mandibles clicking through contingency plans, high minds calculating survival probabilities. They were trying to understand us. You can't understand a wildfire from a laboratory, and they had studied us like we were insects in a terrarium. I stood alone in the observation gallery that night, high above the city of lights and spires. Virex was beautiful, I'll give it that. A planet engineered for aesthetic symmetry. Skyscrapers twisted like glass vines, bathed in bioluminescent mist. The skies shimmer with sky lanes filled with elegant cruisers, silent and civilized. It was a lie. Underneath, Virex was no different than any other seat of power, polished opulence on the outside, rotten arrogance at its core. A chime at the door broke my thoughts. I didn't look back. You're late. Admiral June Tavera stepped in, dressed in something that might have passed as formal wear if you ignored the subtle armor plating beneath the fabric. Her gray hair was tied back, her eyes hard and unblinking. They stalled, she said simply, but the fleet is holding formation. No movement from the defense platforms. Yet, I nodded. Casualty projections? She didn't answer right away. 23 million in the first hour, if we go hot, mostly non-combatants. That was the price of making them listen. That number goes up the longer we wait. She crossed her arms. You sure this is a play? I turned to her. They needed to see it, needed to feel it, our capacity. We tried diplomacy. Human ambassadors got laughed out of chambers. We tried unity, offered tech, trade, culture. They took what they wanted and sanctioned the rest. Then they killed our colonies. I tapped the window softly. We needed to show them we are no longer begging at the table. June looked out across the city with me. You sounded like your father just now, she said quietly. That caught me off guard. My jaw clenched. He died on New Tarsus. I know. We stood in silence for a long moment. The weight of memory settled like dust on my shoulders. I remembered the footage of New Tarsus, how orbital weapons stitched across its green valleys, how the children's creches were targeted first to reduce long-term resistance. I remembered my father's voice on the emergency channel. Calm, steady, dying. Humanity had built a civilization among the stars and been punished for daring to dream too fast. That ended now. They'll offer you a puppet seat, June said eventually. Symbolic, conditional, controlled. I nodded. I'll reject it. She smiled faintly. Good. A new voice crackled to the calm on my wrist. Commander Rhane, priority signal incoming. Unmarked diplomatic envoy entering Virex orbital space. June arched a brow. More council games? Unlikely, I muttered, patch it through. A moment passed. Then the hologram flared to life on the tabletop. The face that appeared wasn't council. It wasn't even expected. The being was cloaked in a data static field, its features obscured, fluid, shifting like a mask of flowing code. But the voice? I recognized the dialect. The Zerati, a myth, some believed. Whispers of an ancient species that operated outside council law. manipulating events through unseen influence. Galactic string pullers. Ghosts. Commander Rhane. The voice buzzed like harmonized machinery. You have disrupted the equilibrium. We are intrigued. I stiffened. State your purpose. We come with information. The colonies that were erased. The orders did not originate with the Council. My blood froze. What are you saying? A ripple in the signal. You were provoked. Designed. The destruction of your colonies was not enforcement. It was orchestration. June stepped closer, her voice tight. By whom? The Empire Glass, the Zerati answered. Old enemies. Very old. The Council was a tool. I blinked. I knew that name. From the old Earth archives. A lost empire that once rivaled the galaxy's foundations. Vanished centuries ago. Ghost stories. Rumors. Until now. They want a war, I said. They want your extinction. And the Councils. The Zerati leaned closer, their voice now a dagger truth. You have started something. Human. Make sure you end it. The signal cut. The air felt thinner now. Admiral June exhaled slowly. Well, Elias, looks like we're not just changing the rules. No, I whispered, already seeing the storm ahead. We're tearing down the whole game. They met beneath the planet's crust. Not in the grand chamber, not in the gilded towers of diplomacy, but deep below, where ancient roots of power twisted like veins through a planet that had ruled for 1,000 years. The true council, the ones the galaxy never saw. I was escorted and blindfolded, not for my sake, but theirs. Symbols of control, ceremony, tradition. They didn't want me walking into that room like I owned it, but I already had. When they finally removed the blindfold, I stood in a cavern lit by molten crystal and blacklight, where shadows bent unnaturally and walls hummed with psychic resonance. The 13 most powerful beings in the galaxy sat on thrones that weren't made. They grew, as if the planet itself bent in servitude, and for the first time, I saw what the council really was. The figure in the center leaned forward, a being of liquid darkness, shimmering like oil on water, no eyes, no mouth, just presence, authority. You came alone, it said. Its voice was not heard, but felt inside my spine. You prefer it that way. I replied, no audience, no witnesses. Another throne stirred, this one a crystalline insectoid, wings folded like swords behind its back. What do you want, human? Same as before, I said, a seat at the table. The liquid shadow twisted. No, you want revenge. You want blood for your lost colonies. You want power. You're damn right I want power, I said, stepping forward. Because power is the only language this galaxy speaks, and we're tired of translating. A slow, pulsing silence. Then laughter, dry, echoing, ancient. One of the beings, a multi-eyed thing that looked part fungus, part machine, let out a sound that was half mirth, half warning. Humanity was warned. Expansion carries consequence. No, I said coldly. It carries risk. Consequences are for things we choose. We didn't choose genocide. I dropped a hollow emitter onto the floor. It flickered to life. Images from the Zerati transmission. Proof. The real enemy. The manipulation. The war beneath the war. They watched. Some leaned forward. Some recoiled. The room's energy shifted. You were used, said the one made of flame and ice. You were never the target. Merely a lever. Then let's turn that lever the other way. I said, let humanity be the hammer now. Let us in, or watch the galaxy burn. The chamber shook slightly, maybe tectonic, maybe emotional, hard to tell on Virex. One of the figures, small, cloaked in silken membranes, leaned close. You believe you can survive what's coming? We already survived you. A low hiss rippled around the thrones. The central figure finally spoke again. We cannot unmake what has been done. No, I agreed, but you can decide what happens next. Help us crush the Empire Glass. Declare them enemies of all life. Grant humanity operational sanction, war jurisdiction, and strategic command of the outer arm. They recoiled. You asked to lead? I asked to when. The silence stretched. Then, to my shock, one of the thrones, an ancient reptilian matriarch, stood, slowly, creaking like old bones over centuries. "The humans are dangerous," she said, "but danger is what we need." She looked to the others. "They did what none of us could. They forced us to listen. And they bring us war when stagnation has rotted our teeth." One by one, the others shifted, not in agreement yet, but not in opposition. I pressed. "You won't get another chance. The Zerati warned us. The Empire of Glass is moving. You can't stop them alone. But we can. Earth was a forge, and you spent a century tempering us in fire. The oil shadow moved last. And slowly, imperceptibly, it nodded. You will have your seat." I didn't exhale. "Not yet." But it added, "If you betray this council, if you misuse the power you demand." I locked eyes with the darkness. "You think Earth fears death? We've lived beside it for 10,000 years. It's not death we fear, it's irrelevance." The flame and ice figure cracked a rare smile, then burned bright, human. "We just gave you the galaxy's matchbook." I emerged from that underground sanctum with more than just a title. I emerged with a declaration. Humanity had just been made a council power. Equal, armed, unleashed. The rest of the galaxy had no idea what was coming. But they would. Soon. They called it the Outer Arm. We called it the Graveyard. 16 colonies. 12 once thriving trade routes. 3 full research planets. Gone. Razed, sterilized, erased. A silence in the stars that echoed louder than any war cry. This is where we began. Where Earth's new authority would be tested. Not by negotiation, but by action. And it started with Ravelin Drift. I stood on the bridge of the ISS Revenant, flagship of the newly sanctioned Earth War Directive, flanked by commanders who once answered to no one but Earth's broken governments. Now, they looked to me. Behind us was a fleet humanity had built in secret, forged in orbital scrapyards, weaponized in rogue Saturn foundries, and buried in dark space until the Council blinked. It wasn't the largest fleet in the galaxy, but every hull was fast, angry, and manned by crews with something to prove. Admiral June Tavera appeared beside me, her face grim. "Interceptors are probing the Ravelin system. For known signal ghosts, no transponder pings. They're masking as mining scouts." "Empire Glass?" I asked. She nodded. "Has to be. There are patterns all over it. Hit first. Erase everything. Move on." I turned to the comms officer. "Project warning to all remaining satellites in system. Human jurisdiction now applies. Breach will be treated as hostile engagement." "Yes, sir." I walked to the viewport. Out there, Ravelin Drift looked like a scarred memory. A star system left to rot. Corpses of orbital stations drifted like frozen bones, whispering of civilization that never got to scream. Until now. June crossed her arms. "You sure about this move?" I didn't answer right away. The truth was, no. Nothing was sure anymore. But I knew the cost of hesitation. I'd seen too many burned out arcologies. Too many mass graves and too many council reports that read like weather summaries. Total loss. Acceptable. Species recovery rate. Negative. No more. They think we're here to reclaim what's left. I said, "Let's show them we're here to retake everything." I turned to the helm. "Execute dark drop. Bring us an undercloak. Launch shadow wings and prepare boarding operations. I want prisoners. I want names. I want a map to their next move." The bridge came alive with motion. 15 seconds later, the Revenant and its battle group slipped into stealth space, plunging toward the derelict system like a blade into soft flesh. Ravelin Drift orbit 3 hours later. It wasn't a battle. It was a hunt. The Empire Glass didn't expect resistance. Not yet. They'd grown used to striking ghosts, to sterilizing systems and vanishing into void before patrols ever registered the heat. But this time, humanity was waiting. Our wings came in fast and silent. Gunships decloaked point-blank beside their sensor buoys. Boarding spikes punched through enemy hulls like righteous spears. By the time their commanders woke to alarms, half their fleet was blind, and the other half was bleeding. I watched from the ops deck, eyes scanning telemetry as red icons blinked out one by one. The enemy tried to run. We marked every warp trajectory. We let them, because June was right. This wasn't just war. This was intelligence. Their patterns, their fallback points, their origin trails. Everything we needed to unravel the puppet master hiding behind the veil. "Commander," came a call over comms. We secured the Velethus, one of their command ships. Prisoners aboard. They tried to scuttle, too slow. Status of the crew? For officers still breathing. AI core intact. Looks like they didn't expect a human override protocol. June leaned toward me. "That's our first real lead." I nodded. "Bring them aboard." Interrogation chamber, hours later. The Empire officer stared at me through a cracked visor, her silver blood leaking into her collar. She looked human, but wasn't. Too perfect. Too still. Like she'd been printed, not born. She smiled when I entered. "You're late." I didn't sit. "You're part of the glass?" She didn't blink. "I am the whisper in your wind. Commander, we built your fears. All that rage in your people, it was cultivated." I leaned closer. "Good." I whispered, "because now we'll return it refined." She laughed, and for a moment it chilled me. "Do you really think a council seat changes your fate? That now you're a power among powers?" She leaned forward. "You're still a spec. You're just a louder one." I activated the projector beside her. Maps flickered, routes, bases, command signals traced back through encrypted pulses. She froze. "You're right," I said. "We are specs." I leaned close. "Specs that just found your throat." Later that night, in orbit, June stood with me as the prisoners were transferred to secure black sites for deep AI scan and memory extraction. We watched the wreckage of the enemy fleet burn across Ravlin's orbit, metal coffins drifting through the silence. "No colonies reclaimed," she said. "But we made a statement." I nodded. "And now we follow the trail." She frowned. "To where?" I looked past the drifting graveyards, to the place the enemy fled, the cradle void. Her breath caught. No one's entered the cradle in over 1,000 years. No maps. No return signals. It's a black zone. You'll be alone out there. I turned to her slowly. Not alone. The fleet behind us lit up with jump signals. Earth's fury had a direction now. And the ghosts that started this war, they were about to be haunted. There are places in the galaxy where light refuses to go, where maps end and myths begin. The cradle void was one of them. A sphere of stellar silence. A dead zone where signals vanished. Ships never returned, and even the bravest navigators spoke only in whispers, if they spoke of it at all. Officially, the Council declared it unviable. Unstable gravity wells, radiation storms, AI drift, ghost space anomalies. Unchartable. Unofficially, everyone knew that was where the Empire of Glass was born, and now we were going to drag it into the light. Entry vector, cradle edge 0600 hours. The ISS Revenant coasted just outside the gravity shear. The void loomed like an ink blot against the stars, a bruised scar on the galactic canvas. No pulsars, no comms, no emissions, just absence. Admiral June Tavera stood beside me, arms locked behind her back, gaze locked ahead. Deep scans show nothing. No EM, no subspace trails, not even dust movement. I nodded slowly. "That's the trap." She raised a brow. "And we're still going in?" I met her gaze. "We've gone too far to turn back now." She sighed, then gave a single nod. "All right. Final system checks complete. All ships are prepped for ghost space navigation. Shield cycling every 6 seconds to counter ambient distortions. The fleet shimmer with adaptive armor. Human ingenuity fused with salvage tech from a dozen former enemies. We'd learned from our pain, upgraded from our losses. And now, we were death in motion. "Open the channel," I said. A hollow of the fleet commanders lit the bridge. Grim faces. Scarred veterans. Some barely human anymore. "This is Commander Rhane." I began. "You're about to enter the place where the Empire Glass was born. The place they hid while they bled our colonies dry, manipulated the council, and turned this galaxy into a rigged game. I paused, scanning their eyes. They thought they could silence us, that we were too fractured, too primitive to respond. But we're still here, and now we're knocking on their front door. I stepped forward. If we don't make it back, let this be our monument. Humanity does not disappear quietly. We come with fire. We leave our name etched into stone. A dozen captains responded in unison. Terra Invicta, Earth Unconquered. The jump drive whined, building tension in my bones. Then we dropped into the void. Cradle sector, unknown coordinates. Everything was wrong. The stars twisted unnaturally, bent in silent spirals. There was no sound, no signal, no motion, just the oppressive presence of something ancient watching. And then we saw it, the Mother Forge, a structure the size of a moon, shaped like a flower of mirrored obsidian, pulsing slowly in the darkness. Tendrils of alloyed glass extended from its core, like veins through space, tapping into shattered planetoids and drawing power from collapsed suns. This is where they made them, June whispered beside me, where the glass-born were engineered. She was right. The prisoners we'd taken were constructs, biological shells filled with code echoes and obedient hatred. This was their nursery, their temple, and we had just stepped inside it. Suddenly, movement. Thousands of ships, hundreds of thousands, phase into view around the Mother Forge. No lights, no warning, just sudden presence. Enemy, June gasped. How? We didn't detect any of them. They were cloaked in phase glass, I said, hiding between dimensions, waiting. The enemy fleet began to move. Too large, too fast, too perfectly synchronized. I opened comms to the fleet. This is it. All forces, full combat spread. Shadow wings go evasive. AI cores to full tactical capacity. We don't outrun this. We crush it. The Revenant surged forward. The sky lit up. The battle of the Cradle Void. It was chaos in motion. A war fought in silence. Phase glass ships weaved through our formation, warping in and out of visual range. We adapted. Linked all human ships through a neural mesh. Pilots moved like neurons in one mind. No hesitation. We lost the ISS Daggerfall in the first 3 minutes. Glass shards ripped it open like a fruit, but its core detonated before they could recover wreckage, taking 20 enemy ships with it. June's voice crackled through command. They're linked, not just networked. Bonded. Kill one. The other shift formation like it felt the wound. They're hive-coded, I muttered, all signal trails traced back to the forge. It clicked. They're not the real threat, I said. June turned. Then what is... I pointed at the Mother Forge. That. Shut it down. We cut off the brain. She stared at the monstrous station. How the hell do we crack that? We send something they won't expect. Infiltration pod. 2 minutes later. The pod vibrated as it launched from the Revenant's underdeck. My team was on board. 5 elite operatives, ex-special forces, all enhanced. All volunteers. All ready to die. Our mission, get inside the Mother Forge and plant a data spike. Not to destroy. To reveal. If we could expose their location to the galaxy, the Council will be forced to act. Even cowards can ignore a god rising in the dark. The pod shook. Impacts. Enemy fire. My HUD flickered. Then, impact. The doors blasted open. I stepped into a cathedral of glass and code. Rows of fetal soldiers pulsed in nutrient tubes. AI voices whispered across 100 channels in dead dialects. The walls moved, alive, watching, and at the far end, a throne. Empty, waiting. I stepped forward and activated the spike. A pulse of data ripped outward. A beacon, coordinates, power signatures, threat levels, weaknesses. The forge screamed. Back on the Revenant. The beacon activated. Enemy ships paused, just for a second, and that was enough. Our fleet surged. A tactical AI initiated a final burn on the ISS Manticore, crashing it directly into the Forge's core. Explosion. Implosion. Shattered reality. The forge began to collapse. The Empire had been revealed. The galaxy would see. And now it would have to choose. The forge burned, a silent supernova folding in on itself, dragging broken ships and shattered hopes into its collapsing heart. Behind us, our fleet limped out of Cradle Void, scarred, smoking but alive. I stood on the observation deck of the Revenant, suit scorched, one arm in a sling, ribs cracked. But I was breathing. We all were. That was the difference. Because the Empire of Glass didn't expect survivors. Their entire doctrine was predicated on the idea that they could destroy without consequence, that we were too disorganized, too fractured, too human to retaliate. They were wrong. We'd planted the beacon, and the signal had gone out across every known channel, Council, Pirate, Fringe World, even the Deep Drifters, the Empire's location, their fleet compositions, their birthplaces. Everything we could scrape from the Forge's core was now public, and the galaxy was waking up. 1 week later, Galactic Council Emergency Conclave. I walked into the Grand Chamber again. But this time, I wasn't alone. The surviving human fleet followed in low orbit, visible, armed, not for intimidation, but clarity. There would be no more backroom deals, no more quiet genocides, no more silencing our voice. We were the voice now. The council hall, once cold and smug, buzzed with unease. The alien delegates, all once so composed, now shifted in their seats. They had seen the footage. They had heard the cry of the Mother Forge as it died. And for the first time, they feared what we'd uncovered more than they feared us. Good. At the center of the chamber, Sutherizek pulsed with tension. Commander Rhane, it said, slower now. You bring grave warnings. The data you transmitted confirms your claims. The Empire Glass is real. It has infiltrated council systems. No, I interrupted. My voice was calm, deliberate. It is the system. Gasps echoed across the tiers. I stepped forward and activated the core spike, now modified with decrypted logs, not just from the Empire, but from council archives. Stolen, hidden, buried. They had known. Not all of them, but some. Whispers and votes. Bribes disguised as trade negotiations. The Empire had long arms. It didn't just want power. It wanted to mold the galaxy. Humanity's extermination was never a side effect. It was step one. Sutherizek dimmed. What do you want from us? I looked across the sea of representatives, some shamed, some furious, a few trembling. I want your answer. To what? I stepped onto the central platform. Do you kneel to the Empire in fear? I swept my gaze across the room. Or do you stand with Earth and fight? A beat of silence. Then a voice. Low, ancient. It came from the Arkan representative. We fought your kind 100 years ago, it said, and lost pieces of our world to your flame. We swore never again. I nodded. We lost cities too. We remember. That's why we're still here. The Arkan rose slowly. Then we stand with you. A ripple. The Varnok delegation stood next. Then the Kralek. The deep sight Ethri raised their tendrils in ascent. One by one, the council members rose, not in unison, not as one body, but as fractured, disparate peoples who, for the first time, realized that humanity didn't come to conquer. We came to survive, and to ensure no one else was hunted in the dark ever again. Hours later, private hall. Admiral June Tavera sat across from me, her uniform still marked with battle soot. You just did the impossible, she said, tired but proud. They're calling the Earth Accord. Let them call what they want, I replied, sipping a bitter cup of synthetic coffee, just as long as they hold the line. She leaned back. You think they will? No, I said honestly. Some will betray us. Some already regret today. The Empire isn't gone. They'll rebuild, retaliate. So what then? I looked out the window, where new ships blinked into orbit. Not human, not alien, allied. Then I spoke the words that would be etched in stone across Earth's first interstellar embassy. Then we meet them in the dark. Together.